Okay. I love the idea of this project. I feel like we all need to share stories. We all have stories, whether we think our story is that important or that interesting or not. We all have stories and we can all learn from each other's stories. And living the way we do up here is pretty unusual. And the ways we all came here are different for each person possibly. And I think it's really fun and important to hear what drew us here, what pulled us here, what was that impetus to get here, or what was that mistake or accident to get here. How intentional or unintentional was it? For me, I grew up in Southern California on the beach in Malibu. I had a really idyllic childhood when I look back and think about it now. I had the mountains right behind me. I could go exploring and running around in the woods and the trees and the canyons and the rocks, and then go down to the beach in 15 minutes. And my father had built our own house. It was pretty wonderful. I had 2 sisters and a brother, and I think we're really blessed to be there. It was simple. It was the 50s and 60s. Things were starting to foment, but it was a bit of a bubble. We were kind of protected there as far as the outside world, it felt like. And I think I started traveling very early. I started hitchhiking up and down the coast, which is what you did in the 1970, let's say, 70, 71. And I'd take a friend and we'd hitchhike up and down the coast, and our parents, our mothers would not even know what we were doing. We're going to a friend's house for the weekend. And on one of those hitchhiking trips, my very closest friend, Rebecca, at the time, met this cool hippie dude who was a bunch older. And he was very sweet and romantic and played the flute, and we all hung out on the Russian River together, and he said, "Me and my brothers are going to buy some land up in Humboldt County." We're like, okay, where's that? We had no idea. We graduated high school in '73 early, and we hit the road and we came up to Humboldt. I came up in '74, she came up in '73, and moved onto the land. It was way out there in Harris, down Dugan's Mill Road. And Bobby Sunman, who's one of our characters in town, that was who brought us up here originally. And I got up here, I was 18. I realized I was pregnant with a very sweet man that it was just a happenstance at the Renaissance fairs, which was another part of my history, was gypsying around in the Renaissance fairs in Southern California and Northern California. A beautiful time. Kind of my Grateful Dead awakening was the Renaissance fair. So that was beautiful. And in realizing I was pregnant, there was not much infrastructure up here in 1974 as far as babies and birth, and I did not know how important that was going to become to me later on, but at the moment I felt very shaky as far as I knew I wanted to be a mom. I knew this baby was supposed to come, but I didn't feel like I could be out in the wilds of Humboldt County where we actually had to walk in a mile to the land because there was no road. So I, about 5 months pregnant, found myself in Berkeley where one of my sisters lived. And she took me down to the welfare office and got me welfare and Medi-Cal and food stamps, and I didn't even know what all that was. And she helped me find a place to rent, and I got into this shared household of 5 or 6 students at Berkeley. And they were wonderful people, and they were very accommodating to me, this young, hippie, pregnant woman with no partner. I remember, this was such a flash for me, and I think of it more and more as the years go by. I was following along with my older sister. She's 12 years older than me. She'd already had a baby. She knew about these things, I've decided. At that point I decided. So she took me to her obstetrician, because I was pregnant. Here's my obstetrician. You'll love him, he's a lovely man. And I went in and I saw him, and I did not like him. I absolutely didn't like him. I still remember his name, but I probably shouldn't say it. He was so paternalistic. And even in my infancy of 18 years old, I felt that feeling of him patting me on the shoulder. Lily, don't worry about a thing. We're just going to take care of it all for you. I thought, that just doesn't sound right. I don't know why, but it doesn't sound right. So I got back to our house in Berkeley, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about my baby, and this doesn't feel right. And so I don't know if it was my idea or somebody in the household said, call up the Berkeley Free Clinic. It was a wonderful free clinic down there at that point, probably still is. So I called them up and I said, hi, I'm pregnant and I just saw this obstetrician baby doctor and I really don't like him, but I don't know what else my choices are. And the blessed woman on the phone, the receptionist said, oh, you need a midwife. And I went, midwife? Yeah, well, what's that? I hadn't even heard of it. So she gave me the phone number of this wonderful woman, Pat Michnick, around the corner. It turns out she lived like 2 blocks away from me on Colby Street in Berkeley. And I, called her up and went around the corner. She said, oh, I'm so busy. I have so many babies due in the spring of 1975. I don't know if I can accommodate you. I'm like, let me just come over and we'll just chat. And I walk in and we both really liked each other. And she's sitting on the floor cutting out nightgowns for her daughters on the beautiful Berkeley wooden floor home. And I thought, this is it. She's got to be my midwife. She reminds me of my mom, So we started a relationship and I went to her. She had a little office with another midwife and a doctor who was a pediatrician. And I had my prenatal care and everything was great. And I had my son at home in March of '75, which was, of course, a very kind of unusual thing at the time. I didn't think of it as unusual, really. My sisters, my mother, they were all, oh, no, you have to go to the hospital. Why do I have to go to the hospital? Well, because that's what you do. You don't, people don't give birth at home anymore. You have to go to the hospital. I'm like, well, I don't really think I want to go to the hospital. My midwives both had their babies at home, and I didn't know anybody else. Nobody in my circle of friends, school, whatever, nobody was having babies yet. I was the first one. So I decided that I would just go along with it and just be at home. And I remember, I turned 19 before he was born. In my 19-year-old brain, I thought, if I'm in a hospital, they're going to take the baby away. At that time, babies were born in the delivery room. They were taken to the nursery. You couldn't have your partner friends with you. It was very restrictive. You most likely had drugs. You were most likely, on the back on a table with your legs splayed open and tied down. It was pretty dark ages. It was starting. None of those cool birth books were out yet in 1975. I mean, it's just, nobody knew anything yet. So I decided I did not want them to take my baby away. That was my biggest thing. So I decided to just give birth at home, and he was born at home beautifully, and it was lovely. And a few months later, 2 months later, moved to a different house in Berkeley, and then moved up here when he was, June of 1975. He was just a few months old. And I moved out to the land in Harris, and we had a bunch of hippies, all of us together, and somebody else had her baby, and all the other women, we decided we were her midwives. We didn't know what that was. Kate Lanigan came out and saved our butts, thank goodness. And then I started my relationship with the budding midwives in the community here of Lorraine and Kate, and then became Kate McGuire also. And we kind of helped grandmother, midwife, birth, Reb Israel Health Center, and saw lots of pregnant women, and I just got pulled along. I mean, people are like, why did you become a midwife? Were you a nurse already? No. Did you have interest in medicine? No. I like babies. I always liked babies. Even as a little kid, I babysat really early. I was super into babies and little kids, and I think that was my first pull, possibly, and then the need. It was the need. So many of us were moving out here to these mountains on these terrible roads, far from town. If you even wanted to get to the local hospital in Garberville, it was not always a great scene, not fun. Couldn't have your friends with you, your partner, whatever. So we just started doing it. It was like everything else. We started building our houses. We started putting our own water systems. Started having our own babies at home. And both my daughters were born here in this house. many years after their brother. And several people have come here to the land, and I've caught their babies here on the land. And it's been a magical 45 years of catching babies. Amazing people, amazing way to get to know people. This intimacy that you have that's just like immediate, it has to be. And then the child, you have the immediacy with the child, the immediate intimacy with the child. And like many of the midwives in this area, I've caught babies from my babies now, and some of them are even now having babies. So it's getting pretty third generation there, which is really exciting that we've created this in this community. And I think that that's a lot of what we are, whether it was intentional or not. I remember thinking when people say, how did you feel like you could just do that? You could just go way out in the mountains and drive these roads in the middle of the night and go into people's homes and help them have a baby. I mean, it could be scary. And yes, there have been scary moments, like everything in life, and there have been sad moments, a few. I have been fortunate not to have many. But it's, for me, it's my guiding light has always been grace. Grace has, everywhere I've been, if I look back, I think, wow, I was so graced to grow up where I grew up. I was so graced to be led up here to this community when I did. I was so graced to meet this gawky 22-year-old guy from Florida in the health food store in Miranda in 1977, who became my husband, and we've been together for 43 years now. I don't remember actually like intending something. Okay, it's time to find a partner, so I'm gonna go out and find that partner. No, I fortunately, I guess, I feel like if you're going to live life in a graceful way, that grace is going to come back to you. You got to give it out, and hopefully it's going to come back to you. But you can't give it out thinking, I'm going to give it out so I'll get some back. That's a big part of it for sure. So we've been graced with this life, with this land, this beautiful 95 acres of land that we just keep changing and evolving. We invite different people to live here. We've got woofers from all over the country, all over the world, that come at different times to work here and learn to homestead. We've got the 6 grandchildren. That's really awesome. 19 to 4 months old. And I've been able to be at most of their births and help them come in. And what a gift. I had no idea. You first start having kids, you have no idea. You had kids so that you could get grandkids. That's really the icing on the cake. I tell my girlfriends that are all going to become grandmothers for the first time, that's really the reason why we had kids, was so we get grandkids.